So a few weeks ago, I decided I'd want to make a video about Deltarune theories, and well, now I'm finally fulfilling that promise. So today, we're talking about my number one theory right now. I've had a few months to think on this, and I think there might be true. I don't know. It might not be, and I'd like to hear your opinions on it. Without further ado, let me tell you how Kris has determination, and they already have heard this story, and they've lived it. Let's get started. So you may be thinking, yo, Kris can't have determination. They make sure to admit the fact that determination is the thing every single part of this game. They never ever say it once. Now, one big point of this is the save points. They always used to say you're filled with determination, and now they just say you're filled with power, you're filled with X, you're filled with Y, right? It says you, right? And we've learned throughout Deltarune specifically that you and Kris are not the same person. Like, we've seen Kris take the soul out of themselves, and it's not their soul, it's your soul. And that's a whole discussion over there about that. But essentially, these save points don't prove anything. Determination is something Kris can hold. And, well, what does that mean? What does that mean, Kris? If you remember from Undertale, Flowey sort of had his little speech in the genocide route about how he'd been living the same day over and over, seeing every different outcome because he didn't know what else to do. He had died over and over, but he kept coming back. He burned down facilities, he redid everything. He says that in the genocide route. It has determination, right? So let me tell you. Now, I think Kris has already lived this story of Deltarune. The good ending, probably. All of the things that have already happened before, and, well, Kris is sort of stuck in this endless cycle. Now, what is going to support this theory? It's a pretty bold claim, all things considered. I'm just saying the main character has already lived through it, but consider this. Right? At the end of Chapter 2, the thing that made me consider this theory was the fact that at the end of Chapter 2, Kris does some very questionable things that are very precise, right? We can see Kris goes to slash the tires. Now, why would Kris do this if there's nothing to be gained out of it, right? First thing we have to ask is, what does Kris gain from this? And it's not an obvious answer, right? We don't know what Kris gains from this until later that evening, when Toriel calls the police. But then think about this. Why would Kris slash the tires? Not to go to school, because school's not tomorrow, I believe, right? Must have known something was going to happen if they're about to slash the tires. And it's so peculiar, because right after that, Toriel makes sure to tell Susie, yo, stay here. Because of course it wouldn't be safe if there's someone going around slashing tires, right? And so I think Kris must have known that would have happened. And sure, that might be just good intuition, but Toriel could have just gone on with the day, said be extra careful, but why? Why does Kris want Susie to be there when Kris opens the dark fountain? Well, let's talk about why. Now, for this, we have to go through a few other things. Now, Rouse, right? Rouse's a bit of a sussy baka, if you will. You know, a bit of an imposter. You get the point, right? Rouse is a weirdo, and we've been seeing that throughout Chapter 2. Rouse has been doing some interesting things. Now, I think Rouse has different motives, but I don't think he's gonna be a bad guy. Because consider this. If Rouse was a bad guy, why would Rouse be doing all of these things? I think Rouse is fulfilling the prophecy. There's a few things that are just very questionable about Rouse, right? Like, why did Rouse know Kris and Susie's names? Why does Rouse want to know what Susie's doing all the time? How did Rouse even get to the Dark World in Chapter 2 if they're not connected? And there's lots of questions there that I feel are important. Another question is Rouse Azrael? I don't think so. Now, this is going to connect the teas. Now, if you don't know what the teas are, let me tell you. In Chapter 2, there is a shop in Cyber City that sells you teas of the different characters in your party. Now, giving them to each different character gives you different stats or gives you different healing depending on how much they like the different characters. Think like the Choco Diamonds or the Hearts Donuts from Chapter 1. But it tells us a lot about what Kris thinks of the other characters. Now, that might not seem important, but if we're going off my theory that Kris has already lived through this story and knows everything, it actually explains a lot of things. First of all, why would Kris not like Rousey as much as everyone else? Rousey heals the least out of everyone else, yet Rousey has been so kind. Unless Kris already knows what Rousey is planning. There's not a hatred because it still does heal, right? Unlike Noelle to Rousey's, which isn't possible in the game, but that's still coded in anyway, huh? Interesting, huh? But I think Rousey is hiding something, right? I think Rousey is trying to fulfill the story. But the thing is, if the story's fulfilled, then Kris gets reset back to Chapter 1 and has to redo everything. And so I'm thinking Kris is trying to divert these timelines to create something different, to get themselves out of the loop, right? Now, it's a big jump right there, right? But like, almost like a Groundhog's Day situation, they're trying to get themselves out of it, but they can't. They have determination, which is weird, right? Kris having determination to what? Now, why would Rousey try to fulfill the prophecy, though? Well, who else? Now, if Rousey is trying to fulfill a prophecy, keep a single timeline to make sure everything goes right, then who else benefits from that? Mr. Gaster, of course. You know, the mysterious dude that is overtaking the world once again from 2016 to 2020, 2021. Either way, let's think about this. Gaster is spread across all the timelines. That's been shown through the Gaster followers in Undertale. So, narrowing down timelines would definitely help out Gaster, considering everything, right? The more parts of Gaster will be put together, the less timelines there are. So, fulfilling a prophecy and trying to narrow everything down would make a lot of sense, right? And Kris on the other hand, Kris is sort of just like, doesn't want that, not because they hate Gaster, maybe they do, I don't know, but because they're stuck reliving the same 7 chapters. And trust me, it's definitely a stretch, and so I don't know how accurate this would even be. Considering everything, it would make sense that Kris is sort of trying to escape this. But then that leaves the question, what is the Snowgraver? Is that you helping Kris out? I have a completely different idea with Snowgrave, and hear me out, because it's a bit of a stretch, but it would be a very Toby Fox thing to do. See, if you're doing Snowgrave, you're definitely a completionist, and you want to see everything the game has to offer, right? But the thing is, you're only playing Deltarune if you played Undertale, and if you played Undertale and were a completionist, you did the genocide route. And so, consider the following. People who did the Snowgrave route also did the genocide route. And I think Toby Fox is going to try to pull some Kara using your soul to take over another universe, right? Go destroy the other worlds, right? That's what Kara said at the end of Undertale's genocide route. And if you sold your soul to them, well, it would make all the more sense. And this is going to definitely be developed, but it's very interesting, don't you think? Like, in the end of the Snowgrave Chapter 2, whatever, Noelle says the voice sounded unlike Kris's, and it was very scary, right? If you're transferring Kara over to this world by doing all of these nasty things, you are not doing Snowgrave if you didn't do genocide. What a clever way. If this is what's happening, that's genius. Because literally the only way you're gonna ever care about Snowgrave is if you played Undertale. And wow. I mean, I could be totally off the mark here, but I think that'd be a very clever way to do that. So, in summary, I think Kris has determination. Kris has lived this story over and over and is trying to change something. Another question brought up is, what about the Dark Fountains? Now, I don't think Kris is the knight. I think maybe Rousey is. I don't think Kris is the knight. Kris knows they can create Dark Fountains, and I think having Kris and Susie in the same place while Rousey is somewhere else could definitely lead to something. And I have no idea. We'll have to just see, because Chapter 2 is all we got right now, and it'll be a while till Chapter 3, 4, and 5. But, oh boy, I'm excited. In the end, basically, Kris is not a bad guy, and I refuse to believe they are evil. But I think they do know things, and I think they're trying to stop these things from happening. So I think you'll have to make a choice between sticking with Rousey or sticking on with Kris. Or maybe you're gonna be Snowgrave and literally stick to yourself. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you have anything to say about these, please comment below because I'd love to hear your opinions, and consider subscribing and liking the video, I guess. Yeah, have a good day. Vida say goodbye.